Start us off, Carter.
And welcome back to the K Cast, your favorite K pop American based podcast. Carter here.
And I'm a Rumi stan. She can go
Yes,
to
yes,
hell.
your love of Rumi is very well documented, Kevin. Um, yes, so we wanted to do a quick update on the recent events and the odd mystery around the Saja Boys. As many remember, they had their last concert a few weeks back. Surprise guest appearance by everyone's favorite Huntrix. And while many people are talking about the incredible special effects on display, the rear projection of the giant flaming mouth, the fact that they had at least 8 people flying in the air at one point, in the entire sky over the stadium changing. We've not gotten an update from the Saja Boys in 2 full weeks now. At first, the entire performance seemed like it was an attempt to rebrand, which, it happens in the industry. The BTS we have now isn't going to be the same BTS we had before they went off to the military. It looked like they were gearing toward a brand shift, but perhaps it's a retirement announcement. Their social media pages are still up, but haven't been updated since. We will keep you updated on this as we go forward. But actually, it's Carter and Kevin don't sleep on football. Carter here. God damn it, I almost said the old name again.
Yeah, you've been slipping. Um, yeah, no, that's gonna be my intro for myself. You've been slipping.
I have. Well, you know what? I'm just bringing between exploding my foot and basically being on 2 hours of sleep. I'm bringing the same energy that our fuck ass teams are bringing to the table.
My brother in Christ, see a doctor.
It's not. No, this has happened before. It's just a more extreme version. It's just a pulled tendon on the side near the pinky. This has happened like 3 or 4 times before. I just got to gut it out. It's a little more extreme than the last time. That's all.
You're not making a case at all.
But it heals on its own.
You know who says
There's
that
no
is broken?
swelling. There's no.
Me.
All right. So for
You
the
know who's
audience,
broken?
big.
Me.
There's not. There's not a lot to. There's not that much football to talk about this week, so we might as well cover this. So I was sitting cross-legged in my chair as I'm wont to do. I stand up, don't really realize how asleep my foot is, and it just kind of rolls forward, and I hear a pop, and I do the bit from Smiling Friends where Alan goes full rotoscope as he's like, "Oh!" Um, and I haven't been able to run for a couple days because the impact causes a lot of tension along the sort of outside side of my foot. I think I just popped a tendon. It's strained. I just got to give it a day or two. I mean, God knows I ran definitely with something torn in my knee once. So I feel like if I just give it a day, it'll be fine.
Wasn't that day like 2 days ago?
Well, sometimes it takes more than one day.
I'm just gonna leave that out there in the world.
Anyway, shall we cover the highlights?
Yeah, I guess we can.
All
It's a
right.
very small list.
Yeah, this was. Guys, this isn't a good week of football when I don't reasonably feel like I can pull my game of the year at this time of year. There's one game that kind of qualified that, but then I'm like, it wasn't that good of a game to justify it. Like, it's got to be a little crazier. It was just like a good game of football. Anyway, can New England be contenders? So we briefly talked about the New England Patriots last week when they beat the Buffalo Bills, and the worry that they were going to have a letdown game really didn't end up coming into play. Right, the score is a lot closer than the game itself because they had at least one touchdown overturned due to a penalty. It was 25-19. For the question of contender, I'm curious what you think. My gut still says no, partially because I just refuse to believe a team with this bad a running game. Like, if your starting quarterback is your leading rusher and like it's not like a case of like
It's
Lamar
not.
or Josh where it's like
Yeah.
a designed that's like how you designed it. Like, I just refuse to believe a team that can't run the ball very well has a shot. But any question about whether or not Drake May is for real, I think
I feel
once
like
again
that's off
got
the board.
silenced.
Yeah.
Yeah, he looks
Also,
like what was promised.
yeah. Also, they're a very sneaky Ford too. They're not.
Yes.
They're not like, oh, they're 2-4 or threes even. like they're very quietly in that spot. And Drake May is a slinger.
Hmm. Again, it's like I understood that the upside for Caleb Williams and Daniels was probably a little higher going in, but it really was like the easiest quarterback evaluation you could make. The 6'4" guy who throws the ball really far and can run. Could we coach him so he throws less turnovers? It's
The
like the
answer
most
is
like
yes.
classic. Yes, the answer was yes because we do this a lot. It's like the easiest like, oh, if this 21-year-old could just stop being silly and like putting the ball in danger, we'll be good. And it's like, well, that's why he's 21.
Mm.
Yes, but he was slinging it around the yard this entire game. I believe his quarterback rating for the last 2 games has been in the 80s and 90s. Avoiding pressure. He's not taking sacks with still a just okay offensive line. Pushing it downfield. He's averaging 10 yards a throw. This isn't like we're going to ease the rookie, the young quarterback into it. No, they're like putting a lot on his shoulder. And again, just like the sense of creation and the sense of like unbelievability with some of these throws. Like he already looks, it's shocking how polished he already looks, despite only starting like maybe 9 games.
Yeah,
No,
something
he's
like
started more
no.
than that. He played a bunch of games. He's
Yeah.
not played a full season yet, that's for sure.
It's also, I think, the factor of you gotta look what he's working with here, and
Right.
I don't hate like. I think the best way to describe it is a downgraded version of like this aesthetic that the Colts have,
Hmm.
where the Colts have like a bunch of like sneaky like low position one, high position two people for like all their receivers, their running back, and stuff. So it's like there's that. These guys are all like solid position twos, maybe like a
Hmm.
high position three. And when they drafted kind of working on their like linemen and stuff like that, which is honestly obviously a smart move to do.
Right.
Like Will
Yeah,
Campbell played
honestly, in that
tackle as their
draft,
first pick,
yeah.
which was a correct choice if you ask me.
Right. He's looked I will say he has looked better than I thought he was going to. Again, was he the elite tackle prospect we were getting with like Joe Alt or even like Andrew Tom? No. But he's like a level of competency you needed to run a grown up offense.
Mm-hmm.
Um, And like, yeah, as much as I would have loved, well, I guess I wouldn't because they're in my division. But as fun as it would have been to give May like Tyrell McMillan, it is like on the tier, like in terms of teams that do the everybody eats thing of like we're not going to have a full dedicated number one guy. It's like this is the like this is the middle tier one. The Colts are the higher tier one, and the Bills are kind of the lower tier one in terms of like it actually working in terms of talent. Like they have just enough here that it kind of functions, a good enough tight end. The running backs are capable of catching passes. And Kayshon Boutte is one of those guys where it's like, okay, again, we talked about the weird circumstances for why he didn't end up getting drafted. And just looks competent. Again, I think this team had the number one pick last year, effectively. Like, they won a game at the end of the year that kept them from having the number one overall pick, but from game to game, they were probably the worst team in the league. And the fact that they were able to get this level of talent influx that quickly is actually really impressive.
Mm-hmm. And it's just good for them. Like, it makes. I think we kind of talked about it where during our preseason talks, where the NFC or the AFC East seemed like a blowout division, or at least this was just my
Mhm.
personal thoughts. Of it's like, yeah, we got this going on, but you know, like who's the Bills going against? And I thought the Dolphins would be bigger contenders. Clearly wrong on that one. Um,
Right.
had a little bit of faith for the Justin Fields Jets.
Yeah, man, I'm looking like a real dope on that one.
Yeah,
That's my
I'm
version
winning
of the
this.
Raiders.
Yeah, and then we have and then the Patriots who were like, all right, they did good, but did they do enough to like make themselves winners last like with the draft and off season? And the answer is looking like yes.
Honestly, they remind me a lot of last year's Commanders in terms of like, nailing the quarterback pick and just getting like between Mac Hollins, between Stephon Diggs, between like the guys they brought in on the defense. It's like I'm not asking you to get blue chip players everywhere. Can you just get like competent, like
You have
like
a little bit
yeah,
of depth.
replacement level players? Yeah. Can you just have a competent offense? Like, can you have a competent team effectively? Like last year, there was no competence. There was no like. It wasn't just a lack of talent. It's like a lack of like professionalism. Like it was the worst of both worlds. Of like, you don't have a lot of like built-in veterans outside of a handful of guys on the defense, but also you don't just have enough raw, untapped talent to make up for that. So just seeing it all kind of come together really fast. And you're right. It's like it's good. Like I think one of my biggest hobby horses the last few years is if a team wins a division like more than twice in a row, it's less of a reflection on that team's talent and more of an indictment of the competition around them. Like again, the fact that the NFC East is always changing the division winner, the fact that the AFC North is a bloodbath every year, that's how it's supposed to be. Again, this league goes out of its way to try and force parity on everyone. So to have it be like the Patriots just win 12 straight division titles, that the Bills win 6 straight division titles, it's like that is an indictment of like the other 3 teams kind of just giving up.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, you're not gonna get any arguments from me because it's like look at the absolute insanity that was the NFC West last year, or even just the NFC West over the last let's say 4 year span. I don't
Honestly,
think
yeah.
there has been a single time where it's just like it's the same exact order,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just been stupid competitive every single time.
And again, you should want that. It encourages your team to get better. Like I think we're finding out with the Bills, like the consequences of the consequences of like no competition just allows you to become stagnant.
And that
Like,
is bad.
yeah, exactly. It's like, oh, you're arrogant because you think what you're doing is worse, and it's like, actually, no. It's because for some reason the Jets convinced themselves Aaron Rodgers would work for them.
Yeah, I don't get that one.
Yeah, no, we don't need to let it. We'll talk about the Bills and the Eagles in a little bit. Joe Flacco looks all right. Yeah, so it's funny because the Cincinnati Bengals did lose to the Green Bay Packers 27-18, but it is the most like life-affirming, yes, morale improving 27-18 we've seen in a while. The Bengals started out pretty slow. It looked like a guy who had just gotten there about 3 days ago. But then they end up scoring all 18 of their points in the second half. And it really is just like, again, if you had a replacement level quarterback for Joe Burrow, could you at least function with this offense? Could you at least like open things up on the ground? Could you at least get like, I think a good example, and like maybe this is box office or box score chasing, not box office chasing, is looking at Jamar Chase in terms of his targets to catches. Because the last couple games, it wasn't for a lack of targets. The last 2 games that Browning played before he got benched, he got 8 and 10 targets. The problem is those targets were so off kilter, he only got 5 and 6 catches. Whereas in this game, it was 12 targets to 10 catches. Like just the competency of like, even if I'm just giving up and throwing it to the guy who's good, is it going to be on target enough that we can catch it 75 to 80% of the time? It just makes the offense so much more like functional.
Yeah, and it's relying on somebody that's just like Flacco's. I would say has never been bad at his position at all.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's fluctuated, but like around the talent surrounding him, and like
Right.
comparatively. But he's never been like, oh man, like what is Flacco still doing out there?
Right. Like that's why the Browns games he was playing felt like so weird because it's like, oh, is he like bad now? Like he's had rough years. He got benched for Lamar Jackson, obviously, but it's never been like he is actively costing us these games.
Yeah, but then like look at what he's was working with the Browns. Jerry Judy, Isaiah Bond, Njoku can hold his own. But like the Browns is his defensive team.
Mm-hmm. We talk about Pacers a lot. I do think Joe Flacco is like one of the all-time great Pacer quarterbacks because he's been in the league now for what, like almost 20 years, and like has won a Super Bowl, has had some highs and lows, has had some really, really good years where he was like a fringe, maybe get a few MVP votes, and he's had some couple bad years where it's like, why, God, the Ravens need to do better.
Yeah.
But he's never been worse than like what, 17th best quarterback in the league. Like, I think he is a really good litmus test for like how good the team you've built around him is.
I think that's a true fact. I think if we go back over the years of his career and I think there's some seasons where he would be like on the lower end, but I think 17, like the above 50% mark, is where we would constantly find him.
Right. Like, that's the worst he's doing.
Like, if we just looked at it where it's like, all right, we gave every single quarterback the same offensive line and good wide receivers 1 and 2, like, where do we think they would go?
Mm-hmm.
I think he's 50%, like, hovering around halfway for at least the latter part of his career, but he's not dropping down below that.
Right. Because you look at his stats and they are really, like, if you were to just, like, pause his career now, it is, like, ultimate above average. He's won, like, 10 more games than he's lost, or, like, 20 more games than he lost. His completion percentage is around 60. His touchdown ratio is 3.8. His interceptions 2.4. Like, he is, like, honestly, like, Diet Brett Favre in terms of, like, he'll get you some wins. He'll put the ball in danger and probably cost you 1 or 2 that way. But, like, you're going to get a baseline competency no matter what. Mm-hmm. And, yeah, I think, like, at the end of the day, this season, what's left of the Bengals season is basically, can they be good enough to justify bringing Joe Burrow back at some point? Can they be good enough to at least try to make the playoffs? And the answer now is, probably.
They can make something happen.
Mm-hmm. What is our other? Wow, we really didn't have any.
That's our sleep on games.
Yes, you can hit Dallas and Carolina. Basically, the only game that I'm like, that was a good game.
Yeah, it was oddly close. That was my pick, and it was Bryce Young looking kind of like a mess, but not like as big of a mess as he previously has.
Mm-hmm.
And then Rico Dowdle just running around the field like it was his job.
I mean, he literally gets paid to do it.
He does get paid to it. Versus the Cowboys, where they had a nice little bit of a spread with like Pickens, Prescott, Williams, things like that. And it was down to the wire. The winning score was held fourth quarter, 0 seconds on the clock.
Right. Yes. The Panthers kicked the game-winning field goal to take the lead in the final seconds. Yeah, it is fascinating. I can't decide if the Panthers are good or not, or if they're just getting lucky with the competition they're playing. Because, like, you're right. There are literal quarters where Bryce Young will look like complete deer in the headlights.
And then he looks like he forgets how to play football in the same drive.
Right. It's not the Michael Penix thing where he literally, like, he's good one game, bad the next. It's literally between quarters. Or again, you see why they talk themselves into this, where it's like, yeah, he moves around the pocket well, he scrambles well, he seems like it seems like the players really rally around him, and he does have kind of pinpoint accuracy. And then you're like, at least this time, the customary Bryce Young interception kind of wasn't his fault. It was deflected off of Teteroa McMillan's hands. This was kind of the Teteroa redemption game, because after he had the most targets and catches for anyone who didn't have a touchdown this year, he ends up scoring 2 critical touchdowns that kind of keep them in the game. After that interception, he helps keep them in the game. And then Rico Dowdle, as you said, 239 yards from scrimmage. What's funny is, like, I'm not sure about either of these teams, but I also believe at least one of these teams is going to make the playoffs. Like, Dallas's offense has so much upside, even when it's, like, even as bad as their defense has been, their offense has so much upside. And this is like a half-formed version because they're putting it all on Pickens. Pickens has one of the games of his life, maybe his best game, 168 yards and a touchdown. acted like a cat on catnip at one point. He he like catches a ball, trips, and I do need people to look up this highlight. Probably just search up Pickens hurdle. Holds the ball like a loaf of bread as what's the who's the commentator for the Eagles?
Merrill?
Mel Reese? Merrill, yeah, Merrill Reese. He once described Ed Reed as carrying a ball like a loaf of bread, and Pickens does that, hops over a guy, then he tries to hop over someone else on the next play and gets like pseudo slammed. Again, he will be one of the greatest wide receivers of all time who's never once considered a top 5 wide receiver. But like, yeah, if this is how good the Dolphins looks without CeeDee Lamb, I'm like, well, it only has there's nowhere to go but up. Meanwhile, the Panthers, like, they're 3-3, but they're a really scrappy 3-3. And I can't deny that there's at least enough talent here where I have to believe, like, obviously Tampa's the team to beat in the NFC South, but they could at least make a wild card.
Yeah. I think they're like the perfect description for this team is like they're definitely like a bottom half team, but they're a lucky bottom half team where they're getting these wins against like they lost to the Patriots, which and Jaguars, which would seem absurd, but is apparently not very absurd based off of how those teams have been going. And then they have these like loss to the Cardinals, which is like all right, whatever. And then it's like all right, we're gonna just absolutely smack the Falcons down. We're gonna beat the Dolphins like somewhat weirdly, somewhat not. And then and like sneak a win on the Cowboys and being with how they make the schedule in their divisions, it's very interesting because it's like, all right, it's their next 4 games are literally Jets, Bills, Packers, Saints, 2 of the top tier teams, 2 of the lowest tier teams in just that stretch, and it's just like they got lucky, but also it is so weird.
Right. I genuinely not 100%. There's guys I like on the team, but I don't know um I don't know if they're actually good. I do feel like at the end of the season, one of my goals is to figure out if that Falcons game was a blip or a sign of things for both teams. Like, are the Falcons actually that bad or are the Panthers actually that good? And like basically, I could argue every Panthers win is like that, where I'm like, are you good or are they bad or is it somewhere in between? And I feel like by the end of the season, depending on how the Panthers' final record ends up, we'll know that for sure.
I
I do kind of want them to beat the Bills because it'll force things to change finally.
Yeah. I mean, I'm partially just saying this because they're already at that, but it's like I wouldn't be surprised if they ended up hovering around 500. If they like with their strength of schedule and how they're like playing against these like the lowest and the highest teams, I think with like if they get like a sneaky win over the Buccaneers, even if it's like the week 18, like we're already in, so we don't really care anymore at this point.
Mm-hmm.
It's I think it's one of those like oh shit moments of like
Right.
they can be a lot sneakier than expected.
Right. Currently, the 7th wildcard spot belongs to the Rams at 4-2. God, there is a funky logjam. It's Lions at 4-2, Rams at 4-2, then a logjam of 3-3 or 3-2 teams of the Falcons, Vikings, Bears, and Commanders also, and Panthers.
Commanders threes.
Genuinely, other than the Saints, and you know what, I'm going to put I don't believe the Cardinals are going to make the playoffs. But I'm like, you could convince me that 14 out of the 16 teams in the NFC could make the playoffs now. Even the Giants, because I'm like, could they at least scrap their way to another couple wins?
Yeah, I think that's gonna. I mean, they did it on Thursday, but I think that's gonna be
Get there.
very telling of just how young, scrappy, and hungry they are.
Exactly. Like a lot of teams are, a lot of people on a lot of these teams are trying to save their jobs.
Yeah.
Between Michael Penix, between Bryce Young, between the entire coaching staff in New York, There's a lot of guys who are like kind of fighting for their authority, as it were. So this is going to be it's an interesting run. I kind of had trouble picking my don't sleep on game. Again, there weren't a lot of interesting
It was
games.
not a good
You know,
week
I
of
could talk
football.
about I could talk about the Seahawks because they put up a good showing. Again, the Seahawks are kind of like honestly, they're kind of like the perfect team for a defensive coach. Right now, again, they have their coach who was a carryover from the Ravens, and they are kind of perfect in the sense of like their offense actually is good enough to score enough, but also like I don't know. Maybe I'm thinking from a fantasy perspective because I have their kicker and defense, but it is kind of like perfect because it's like their offense is good enough that they're always going to be at least in field goal range. But because they have a defensive coach, he'll default to field goals a lot as opposed to going for like it's not like the
He's not
Lions
going to
where you're
keep
like they're going
pushing
for
it.
it on every fourth down. Their
Yeah.
kicker is more an extra point merchant. Um, but yeah, nothing that unaffirms my belief that they're a sneaky Super Bowl team. I ended up going with Chargers Dolphins. This was basically of the two cursed franchises, who is less cursed right now? I feel like I might have accidentally jinxed the Chargers earlier when I was talking about Herbert being an MVP candidate because then Joe Alt got hurt and
Yeah.
then O'Meara Hampton got hurt, and it feels like a shell of a team. And this was kind of like when you're trying to gut it through injuries, this is like a game you absolutely positively could not afford to lose against an inferior team. Miami takes a lead, scores 14 in the fourth quarter to take a lead. Herbert ends up marching them downfield and scoring the game winning field goal before Tua ends up throwing his inevitable nightmarish interception. I mean, there was barely any
It
time
was
left,
going
so
to
it
happen.
didn't really
Yeah.
matter, but
It
it's
was
more of just
going
a
to
blot on the
happen,
box
but
score.
it did happen.
Yes. And again, this is like what I want to see from a team who has aspirations this year, but like is currently trying to get their talent back. It was Vlad McConkey's best game. It was Kamani Vidal inexplicably had the game of his life running against this Dolphins team. I believe he's a rookie. And Herbert, again, he looked competent. This is the kind of Herbert game I wish we were seeing sooner, where it's like, even when you're outgunned and outmanned, can you just like keep the offense chugging enough to keep you guys in contention and trust all the other pieces will come together. And honestly, for the Dolphins, it's like I know we've talked about Mike McDaniel getting fired so much, but again, it's like they're putting up a fight. And despite all of the weird energy, despite Tua's like weird press conferences where he talks about people being late for meetings and like accountability, and despite Jalen Waddle deleting any reference to the Dolphins on his Instagram,
Yeah.
like it's weird for a team that seems this functional to be this competitive, right?
Yeah. No, I think it's pure the amount of pure talent that they just have, but there's always going to be something weird, and it doesn't help that what's his face Tyreek Hill's done for the season.
Right. But even then, they still have enough talent to be a higher end offense. I guess it is interesting. Yeah, it's interesting because it's like normally when it's like it's time to fire a head coach midseason, it's either because they've been absolutely embarrassed too many times or that the players are in like active rebellion. And for some reason, I don't like the players aren't quitting and they're at least competing. It's just an odd spot to be in where I'm like, I genuinely don't know how they approach the rest of the season because playoffs, again,
It's
only one team has gone 1-5 and made the playoffs, so that's basically over.
Yeah,
Um,
I think there's that. They have the Browns this upcoming week. They have the Bills once. They have a sneaky good Patriots once. The Buccaneers. I don't think they're going to be able to keep that at a minimum of 5 losses.
mm. Yeah, so I really don't know where to go from there. And I guess that's why I made it my don't sleep on game because I'm like, both of these teams are in very interesting, very different places. Where the Chargers kind of have to keep their pace up because it feels like the Chiefs are back in it, and the Dolphins need to figure out something.
Yeah.
Low lights. Detroit KC, a game that I did not watch nearly as much of as I thought, but I did see the fight at the end, which affirms me being mad at Gannon for not getting suspended.
Yeah. Uh, it was Fight Town USA after Sunday Night Football. 17-30 loss on Detroit. And then, who's it? Brian Branch
Yeah.
I don't know why my
Yes.
first thought is Dion Branch.
I thought that too, and I was also like, that's not correct at all.
He absolutely just hit the life out of Juju Smith-Schuster. Um, Gave him a bloody nose, 1 game suspension. So making someone's nose bleed is the same, in like a straight up throw in hands is the same as spitting on somebody. Who would have thought?
Right.
Um, yeah, this game felt sketch to me, and here's why.
It felt closer than the score suggests.
It felt closer than the score suggested, even though it's like a 2-score game. I think that's how the math works, something like that.
They would have
Um,
needed they would have needed 2 touchdowns without extra points.
yeah.
Wait, no, they would have at least needed 1 extra point. God, are we both bad at math? No, you're better at math than me.
I can't read though.
Yes. Well, that's my only advantage.
Time of possession is a whopping like 37-second difference, or well, technically more than that but it's like Chiefs held it for 30 minutes 37, Lions held it for 29 minutes 23 seconds total. But here's the stat line that like make me feel like things are sketch. The Chiefs got 26 first downs compared to the Lions 18. And it's like, okay, so they're clearly like moving the ball better. But they're only getting an average of point like 0.1 yard more per play, which is like, all right, that's a little weird. And then punts, or not punts, penalties. Lions got 4 penalties for 38 yards. It's like, all right, that happens. You're telling me an entire 53-man roster did not get a single flag at any capacity for a game? Chiefs had 0 penalties for 0 yards.
And here's the thing. Like, I feel like we default to conspiracy with the referees because the truth that, like, a bunch of 65-year-olds, some of whom who need glasses, being expected to properly officiate, like, athletes in the prime of their lives running at, like, 20 miles per hour, like, yeah, they're going to fuck up a lot because that's not a situation they should be put in. But I do think it is a sign for how the tide has changed, where it looked like the Kansas City Chiefs were dead in the water. Like, they started off the season rough, and they're still only 3-3.
Cold, yeah.
But the fact that they're like good enough to warrant accusation and outrage like this, I think is the biggest sign that's like, ah, man, they're back already.
Yeah, it's like neither team losing a fumble, throwing an interception, a couple of punts, a couple of sacks. It's like, all right, yeah, those are average football statistics. It's the fact that this team got no penalties for no yards. Not even like a fucking delay of game 5 yards or however far it is. That's the part that just doesn't sit right with me. And like, I don't like, I mean, I think the chief ref conspiracy theories are some of the funniest conspiracy theories out there in the NFL. But it's just like one of those like weird stat lines of like, this team scored 0 points. It's like, if it's like a 0 to like 7 game, for example, it's like you're telling me the offense of this team did not get lucky enough to get something, or there was like a interception thrown that they could have brought back for a pick 6. They held them to 7, but they still got 0 points themselves. That's sketchy to me. And I saw some like clearly missed calls, and it's one of those things where it's just like, if it's cool, like if it's like, all right, they also got 4 penalties for, even if it's like 25 yards, like a significant amount less, it's like, all right, like it's whatever. It happens. Missed calls happen all the time. So, but it's like there's still some successful ones. That's where Kevin just goes, huh, I don't like that. Also, there was this weird, very weird moment of the Lions getting a flag thrown, or it's all right. How much do you know about the like Dan Campbell? Like to make it simplified, Dan Campbell versus the refs situation after this game.
Did he say something?
So, yes and no.
He's
So there,
giving up on them? Ooh.
nice. So there was
That's
like,
an inside joke, kind of.
so there was a touchdown, and the like Dan Campbell goes over to the ref that's like on his sideline and is like the ref's like, yeah, that's good, but then the head ref like after like a way too long pause calls it not a touchdown. After Dan Campbell said, yeah, like the ref told him it was a touchdown, like outright. And then the ref is like, yeah, we got a call saying it wasn't a touchdown. And it's like, are you
Right. It
saying,
came from, yes, I'm familiar with
like,
this. It came
yeah,
from New York, I believe.
New York said that wasn't a touchdown, which is like, all right, so is New York like reviewing everything and not telling the refs what to do? Also, what is this like overriding thing that they've it's super weird because it happens to be the Chiefs game where it's like a first like clear issue because
Yeah.
that does not do anything but feed conspiracy theorists. But it's like you have the ref saying that there was a call from New York saying it wasn't a touchdown. You have Dan Campbell saying the ref told him it was a touchdown.
Why does
And
this always have? Why does it feel like it always happens with the Lions? Is it
it's
just because they do so many weird trick
I
plays
think
that
so.
the refs just panic?
I think the refs hate the lines, but it's just one of those things where it's just like it's like one of you two has to be lying because the refs are like, no, we never told him it was a touchdown, and it's like Dan Campbell's like, yeah, you did. Why would a call from New York change your mind? And it's
It's
like
almost, yeah, it's
you
almost
can't.
certain that they did get told to change it from New York and don't want to admit it because that makes them look
Yeah,
incompetent.
it's just like that, and it's like, all right, like you have this like like that's a weird vibe setter for everyone, and one of these two parties is right because these are opposite things. You both can't be like
Right? They
this
can't,
isn't
yeah,
like
one
a
of them has to be objectively correct.
yeah, this isn't like a oh, he got a touchdown versus oh, he got a first down where it's like, yeah, you're both technically right, but we're just giving him the first down. He was very close to the touchdown whatever. But he didn't quite get it. But you still have that first down and it's like, "All right, whatever." It's like you got people saying it's a touchdown and people saying it's not. There's no
Right.
you can't mix and match that. They're not
Yes.
gonna
You
like
know what it
award a
is?
safety and a field goal out of pity or something like that. That would be
See,
funny though.
here's the thing. Like, I tend to subscribe to like ticky tack procedural stuff shouldn't matter as much as it does. I understand it's like that pitch play the Chiefs did against the Bills, where it's like, okay, did this objectively change the play that much to take away from like? Did this give them a completely unfair advantage, sort of thing? And the answer is usually no. And like, I'm not against New York ruling. The problem is it's completely arbitrary how they do it now, because it's
Yeah.
not like they do it every play. It seems completely random when they decide, you know what, let's actually look at that and overrule the rest on the field. I mean, you think it's like, okay, with the number of cameras we have, with the number of replays, why isn't New York just handling all of it?
Yeah, it's
Like, I guess, like, could you not just have one sort of guy who stands in for the referees? He gets a little buzzer from New York when they see something, and then he like
he calls
relays
it.
whatever the
Yeah.
penalty was.
No, yeah, that's what's like just makes it weird.
Right. Right, because it inevitably breeds conspiracy because it's arbitrary. And like,
Hmm.
look, at the end of the day, the rules are subject to interpretation a lot of times. So you have to remove as much like guesswork as possible. You have to remove as much arbitrariness. That's not the right word. You know what I mean. But like, yeah, you gotta reduce the number of things that can be suspicious
It
or
has to be a
weird.
whole independent system.
It has to be, yeah, it has to be as close as mechanical as possible. And having this like New York crew who theoretically can get the call, review any call, and theoretically do it better than, again, the 65-year-olds with glasses on the field. It's like, okay, but if you only do that once every 2 games, that's weird.
Yeah, especially over like big moments and stuff. When
Hmm.
like when you choose to do it, or if it's just like I said, like for example, like a first down, like if they call it, if they changed a first down to second and like third and inches versus actually getting the first down, nobody's gonna be upset about that. It's just gonna be like, all right, snap me the ball, I'll hold it over the line, we're done, we got that first down.
Hmm.
But
Right,
is it or
exactly.
is it not a touchdown is such a crazy question to put it on.
Right.
And
And again, it's like if you want New York to just handle the big game, like if you don't want to do it all the time, then it's like, yeah, let New York handle the big games. Be like, this game
implement
is called
full-time
entirely
leagues.
by New York. To just have them have the power of a rug pull is just like, of
It's
course,
weird.
people get suspicious about this shit.
Especially because like 99% of the time, if you talk badly about a single ref, you get a hit with a fine.
Exactly. Right. And yeah, that's before we even get into like the uneven playing field of like, refs
But
are allowed to
then,
screw up as much as they want, but we have protocol and rules in place that you can't be mean to them.
yeah.
As
And
if they're little
then
does.
there's like the like consequences of like, yeah, if they screw up bad enough, we'll suspend the team that like the refing team that does it.
Hmm.
But it's still like it's such like an afterthought. It's like, all right, so you know this guy messed up at some capacity if you're calling this out like this, like saying
Exactly.
this entire team has been suspended, but you're not interfering mid game. It's weird. A lot
Yeah,
of
it's just
weirdness.
frustrating. And again, it's frustrating because it's like the Chiefs look like the juggernaut again. Again, you watch this game and like the Lions have been bleeding secondary players all year
Yeah,
again somehow. It really is crazy how like just some teams are just jinxed like that. But like, again, it's like, oh, they're good again, but also they're getting all those margin calls they got when they were kind of bad. Like Mahomes, straight up, Mahomes looks better. Like I'm going as far as to say during the regular season, the last 2 years, Mahomes looked just bad, like not very
he did
good.
not look good.
And it was more frustrating that they were somehow slipping, dinking and dunking their way to victories and getting all these lucky on the margins things. Where it's like now they kind of look like the team that had Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce in their prime, and you're like, oh, come on. They don't need the help anymore. They're just good, regular good.
Yeah, you got Worthy
Um,
hitting major strides. You got Worthy's like, and he's actually in. He's sneaky good.
yeah,
He's so sneaky.
Yeah, I'm really frustrated about that. But it's great because we traded down to get Dwayne Carter, a defensive tackle who's missed 2 full training camps and whose career is probably just over. So cool that we did, it's so cool that we showed how above it all we are.
You're doing great, sweetie.
No. Yeah, I'm doing great, sweetie. Doing great. I have a migraine. My foot hurts. My mouth is dry. Brian Callahan got fired. Yeah, so honestly, I
Not surprised.
look, a lot of people were calling for this. I'm not special in being like, I think he's going to be the first coach fired. But after a 2010 loss, great year. That's not true. We lost the midterms in spectacular fashion and set up everything that's happening now. But after a tough loss to the Raiders, where there wasn't much of a fight, Brian Callahan got fired. And honestly, I think there are 2 major points from this. It is another case of like, this is kind of why bad teams stay bad. Of like, okay, so like all of this weirdly started with AJ Brown getting traded. Like the Titans got the number 1 seed, lost in the first round, and then traded AJ Brown to the Eagles. Uh, uh, Mike Vrabel looked like he had to put his puppy down. He was so devastated. Then he gets the GM fired on the grounds of like, hey, I didn't want to trade this guy. Then the new GM gets Vrabel fired and brings in Brian Callahan. Brian Callahan gets that GM fired and he's like, give me a quarterback, give me a line, let me do it. And then it turns out Brian Callahan's just no good. So the new GM fires Brian Callahan. And it's like this constant this
It's a
constant little ping
rotating
ponging
door of like the offices.
leadership. Yes, exactly. especially when you add the quarterback element, because there's a real chance when they get a new coach and like Cam Ward doesn't show improvement next year, he could go like, "Hey man, this wasn't my quarterback. Let me draft let me draft Arch. Let me draft so and so. Like, give me a chance." And you just get stuck in this game where you're constantly ping ponging between the triangle of quarterback, GM, coach, and like you make no progress because everyone's just kind of standing there with a knife, getting ready to jump the other guy.
Yeah, there's no winners because no one has a chance to be a winner. And
Exactly.
it's annoying for that fan base, I would say, where
Exactly.
there's no wrong, like right or wrong choice,
Right.
because it's like, yeah, we could blame let's blame Callahan, let's blame the GM, let's blame this guy.
Let's let's blame Cam Ward. And it's like, well, we can't prove anything definitively because when there's no solid foundation, it's hard to evaluate anything. Like, maybe Callahan could have been a better coach under different circumstances. Cam Ward's showing signs, but it's like, oh, well, is he ever going to get a steady enough offense to show what he can do?
The answer
Being a GM is hard, and sometimes it's arbitrary. Yeah, and I also think it's very funny because they are playing the New England Patriots this week. And I have to imagine, there was at least a thought, right, of like, Mike Vrabel is going to rip our spines out. Do we just want to pull the Band-Aid off now? And, like, we're going to fire him regardless, so let's not wait until he gets humiliated against our old coach.
Yeah, for real.
So a bad week of football. I'm sorry, what were you going to say?
No, I was going to say, yeah, especially it's like, yeah, we got rid of Vrabel, and they're actually doing solid.
Yeah, it turns out, Vrabel was a good coach. Maybe don't trade away his, one of the best running backs in the league and also one of the best wide receivers in the league, and he could prove that to you. But yeah, so a pretty bad week of football. I feel like we talked about that a lot, but maybe just we can frame it through our bunk-ass teams looking like bunk-ass teams.
Eagles.
All right, you know what?
Like, the Eagles lost to the Broncos. It's like, all right, there's a little shenanigans. It happened. The Eagles lost to the
Sometimes
Giants.
you have a weird game.
It's like, what the fuck just did I watch?
Right, because at least they could win the Broncos game. Like, the Broncos game, you can intellectually explain, like, yeah, sometimes this happens, sometimes that happens. This was a chain snatching of a game where it just felt like the Eagles, for huge chunks of it, just were not ready to get hit.
They weren't ready to get hit. They weren't going to hit. It looked silly. And then
I understand Jalen Carter's that good, but, like, he can't be that good.
No. There was... It's that Quinyon Mitchell got hurt for a good portion of the game, so he was out, and it's just like... I'm just like, it was one of those things where it's like, what are we watching here? I found myself wondering that way too many times.
Right.
In the middle
it was also a weird week because the Eagles had the very first game and the Bills had the very last game. So you get kicked in the dick and then just have to sit around for 3 days to get kicked in the dick a second time.
Technically, they didn't have the last game. Bears Commanders.
Well, God, I hate these stupid double headers.
Double headers on Monday.
To what end?
But you also have the Broncos and Jets at 9:30 in the morning, and we are telling Europe that we hate them. Love the NFL. It was so bad.
It was actually the worst game of the week. I can't believe. And again, I've defended Justin Fields a lot. You know an insane stat? There are two insane stats from this.
Is it that he had
his average
10 yards and
yes,
existing, I had more yards?
Yes. So for people who look at the box score and see that he had 45 yards but then the team totals negative 10. So basically how they do it is sacks count against the team's total passing yards. So that way the quarterback gets to keep his passing yards, but like the fact that he actively cost the team yards is reflected somehow. Because, sacks are technically both a lineman and a quarterback stat, yada, yada, yada. So they had negative 10 passing yards effectively. Their defense truly tried to keep them in this game. Managed to get a holding call that led to a safety, actually had a couple big kick returns. Like, they should have won this game. Like, the Broncos did not come to play.
Their defense did.
Yes. Fields' average time to throw was 5 seconds. For reference, the average throw gets out in around, 2.2. The biggest problem is he just holds onto the fucking ball forever. Like, he just doesn't commit. And I do think...
for somebody to do lose something.
Right. And I think sort of going back to the Eagles, I do think a part of the problem is like too many teams seem to be under the impression that it's better. And like, I know this sounds like a caveman thing, but like too many teams are hyper fixated on turnover margin now,
Yeah.
where it's like, if we don't turn the ball over, that gives us the best chance to win. And it's like, okay, but
You're not wrong, but also you're wrong.
But yeah, you're playing not to lose, and the problem is that's also dependent on you guys getting a lot of turnovers. Like that only works when it's like the Bills having a plus 23 last year, where all the defense could do was get turnovers and nothing else. And also, like, yeah, sometimes you gotta like stick your neck out to win the game. Like, especially when you have some level of offensive talent, you kind of like. I'd rather a guy throw 15 interceptions and 30 to 40 touchdowns in a year than like 3 interceptions to 20 touchdowns. Because I'm like, it's so much harder to win when you only have. I know I sound like a fucking simpleton, but it's like, yeah, it's really hard to win when you're not scoring touchdowns. And sometimes to score touchdowns, you have to have some level of risk. This was the most risk averse game I've ever seen, on top of the fact that he just kept taking sacks.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think that's weirdly the problem with the Eagles right now, where like Hurts seems to be under the impression that like as long as he doesn't throw interceptions, as long as he didn't turn the ball over too much, they'll win. It's like, okay, but that was also dependent on having an elite defense, an elite offensive line, and the best running game in the league. And now that those things are all kind of in flux, like, man, you might just have to throw 1 or 2 interceptions to get the ball moving.
Yeah. Also,
and
like if you throw an interception, but they are super far down the field,
it's basically a punt anyway.
Can rebuttal very easily. It's like, all right,
exactly.
But yeah, no, we hated London because that's the game we sent them.
Yes.
Ravens got a field goal. That's it. They just absolutely. I wouldn't even say they were crushed by the Rams because the Rams only got 17. It was like
the Rams kind of just putzed around that whole game.
Yeah, the Rams were like, it was like Stafford was just having a catch with Puka for half the game.
They just couldn't score in the red zone for some reason.
Yeah.
The only place the Ravens defense is good is inexplicably the red zone.
Yeah, Seahawks Jaguars, it was like there was no like huge play moments and stuff. And then it was just a lot of in between time.
Mm-hmm.
Like
mm-hmm.
Jacksonville scored at the end of the first. And then the second and third, that is when the Seahawks got a field goal touchdown, and then Jags scored in the fourth, and then it was just like, all right. But it was like 13. It was literally like just into the fourth. Excuse me. And it's like, all right, we're just gonna watch people run up and down the field. Apparently.
God. Someday I want to actually go to a football game, but I can't imagine just sitting there for like a 13-3 game.
Yeah.
Just
nothing. 7 punts to 8 punts. And it's just like, why?
There was a great bit. It was right after the Muppets movie came out, the more recent one. And like Muppets were sort of like in vogue again. What's his name? Sudeikis? The guy who, the human, the main human. Yeah, he got to host SNL, and they have the Muppets come on like, yeah, the Muppets finally hosting SNL. And it's like, oh, no, it's just me. And Kermit goes like, yeah, that's what everyone thinks. I can't do the voice right now. That's what everyone thinks when they see a Muppet movie. Geez, I can't wait to see the human. That's how I feel about games like that, where it's like, I paid $200 for the seat. I can't wait to see some punters.
Yeah, it's part of the reason why I have this like philosophy for like live events and stuff where it's just like, if I'm not gonna get a good seat, I don't want to be there, because it's like, all right, paying like $70 for a nosebleed seat and watching a team just kind of fuck around for an hour, it's just like, why am I doing this? I could have done this
right
at home. and had a better view, and I had the ability to just get up and be like, all right, I'm gonna go switch over some laundry. I'm gonna eat my own snacks instead of paying like $1 million for it.
Well said. Well, that's my whole thing of like, look, football's king in this country for a reason because a great football game, there's few things like it. It's dynamic, it's exciting, it's incredible. But like the baseline, like the floor ceiling ratio for baseball and basketball is just so much safer. Because even during those absolute crap years where like these Sixers were actively trying to lose, at least there is like the social element of being in person. At least it's like breezier, it goes by faster, and like even practice squad level basketball players can at least do like cool stuff, you know? Like they can put on a good show and like do something dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't know. I was thinking about that a lot because the baseball playoffs have actually been really, really exciting this year, even though it feels like we're just creeping toward another Dodgers World Series that'll basically break the entire league because then they're going to want a salary cap.
Yeah.
Well, my stance is no more salary caps in any sport. Enough billionaires run these teams that like do fully guaranteed contracts. I don't know. We'll save this take for a different week because we're already kind of deep into this. Like, that'll be like our mid-season talk because I actually want to double down on this. But like, yeah, like it's the floor ceiling ratio for baseball and basketball. Like, football's pretty consistent, both playoffs and regular season, but playoff baseball and basketball just go so much harder. I don't know. I'm not wording this well, but
You're doing great, sweetie.
yeah, but like. I don't know. I've really just fully appreciated like how good like a basic basketball and baseball game are, but also like how much more hype I get for like playoff baseball and basketball than I do playoff football, where it's kind of more of the same. Whereas like it just feels like a different sport when you get to those other playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
Both in terms of talent and like strategy and like everyone's locked in all the time and it's super tense. Like that final game between the Mariners and who are they playing?
Was it the
The Mariners and the Tigers, I believe, to decide who got out of the wild card. I was just like, this fucking rules.
I thought it was gonna be
The Mariners are AL, Dodgers are NL.
I don't know baseball that well, unfortunately. I thought it was gonna be like what's it called? The moment where the pitcher in the game the other night was like, the ref was or the ump was like, "I'm gonna eject you," and he's like, "No, don't. I'm gonna finish this."
Right. Yeah, Yamamoto.
Yeah.
Yeah, that dude's a dog. But again, that's why they're going to add a salary cap to baseball because the Dodgers should not be able to pay for both him and Shohei Ohtani in back-to-back seasons.
Yeah.
Well, I think what really makes the Eagles thing such a stinker is like not only are they just getting bullied off the field, but then the Phillies have the most like catastrophic playoff loss in recent memory. I don't know if you saw it live, but yes, for people who didn't see it, the Phillies loaded the bases. If the Dodgers score, the game's over. Ball gets hit directly to the pitcher, and it's like, okay, perfect. You just throw it to first base, and the inning's over. You get to fight to see another day. And immediately, you see the way his arms like clench and like his body tenses up, and you're like, oh fuck, he's spiraling. Yeah, he's free. You know, he's bombing. But anyway, and also the Bills were bad. Honestly, I don't. It's just all I'll say is it is kind of disappointing that people have finally woken up to all the shit I've been saying in terms of like complacency, trying the same kind of players and same ideas without it working, bad draft process where you're favoring positional fit and like scheme fit as opposed to just raw talent, and like. Yeah, it turns out you kind of do need a number one wide receiver. Like the biggest takeaway from the Super Bowl was actually like, hey, you know what's great? Explosive playmakers at every position. And the Bills have none of that. The only downside is, like, yes, Bills Mafia has finally woken up to, like, hey, are we kind of fucked? And the downside is, like, the Lamar, Mahomes, Burrow stands are being insufferable about it. Because, again, the downside to quarterback becoming such a talking point for the NFL is, like, we now have basketball-esque stands for individual players. I'll survive. I do kind of hope they lose to the Panthers because anything can happen then. Shall we move on to notable notes?
Yeah. Which we don't have much.
Who do you think is the playoff benchmark? I'm surprised. This is a reverse Hanukkah. Like, make the oil last for 8 nights. We're barely getting through in a couple hours, man.
Yeah.
We're in for a dark winter here, gang.
This is gonna be our shortest episode this season so far, by far.
Really? How long are we in?
We're like an hour in, but usually we're hovering closer to like hour 15, hour 20. When we
Right.
Get to this
Oh,
point,
okay.
or towards the
Oh.
end.
I feel like in general we've been brisker this year.
No.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh. Well, it feels brisker.
It does.
I guess I feel more professional, but
Yeah, we got more.
who do you think is... Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say we got more brains going towards this shit.
True.
Anyway,
Who do you think is the playoff benchmark?
I got.
That's a
one for
good
the
question.
AFC. I don't have one for the NFC at the moment.
Okay. So we're doing both. Okay.
I'm gonna do one for each. Yeah, actually, I got both. I think I have both. AFC. I'm actually gonna go with Jacksonville. They've been.
Interesting. I
They've
was
been
thinking about them.
sneaky good. They're having a solid record, and like they're beating teams that should be bad, and they're like they bought or they're like they bought. Yeah, words are so hard. They beat the Panthers. They beat the Texans. Like they're beating these teams that are like, all right, you're not showing up, and they're giving like the Chiefs and the or the 49ers a little bit runs for their money, and then the anomaly that was week 2 Bengals, but that's also when they still had Joe Burrow. Or no, they had Jake Browning. Joe Burrow got out.
He got hurt halfway through that game. Yeah, that was kind of a weird game. They absolutely should have won that game.
Yeah, but then it's like, all right, they got the Seahawks coming up, and if like, or they like lost to the Seahawks, and it's like they got this like very good like pace of like, all right, this team should be beating them, or this team shouldn't be beating them.
I think that's a good way of putting it. They're winning the games where you're like, it's unacceptable for you to lose this game. But they're not winning any of the games where it's like, if you want to be a series playoff team, you kind of have to punch above your weight class.
Yeah.
That's a good pick. Because I'm like, I think the Seahawks are a tier above them, and you watch that game and you're like, yeah, it feels like they're a tier above them. Where they can put up a fight, but they're not, it doesn't feel like they have an avenue to win.
Mm-hmm. And then
unless like the other team makes mistakes.
Yeah. And my NFC is actually the Rams.
Interesting.
The Rams are a very solid team, but depending who they play against, I'm not like a lot of their losses are very close losses, and their wins aren't like top tier performance wins. Like for example, week 1, they beat the Texans, but they won 14-9. That's not like an outstanding win. That's Texans loss. Sure, they absolutely demolished the Titans, but I feel like that doesn't count.
Right. I think the Rams are like the apex example. Like, again, we've talked about them being stars and scrubs, where they're like, if we have the best player at 3 or 4 positions, we kind of win by default. And I do think this season we've seen like the logical endpoint of that. It's like, where it's like you can beat anyone, but you could probably lose to anyone if you have a bad day.
Yeah, so that's why I feel like they're a very good, like pacer team.
Yes, I think that's a good call.
Because they can hold their own by far, but it's like if they lose, it's not a surprising loss.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can get behind that. I'm going to go with, for the AFC, I'm going to say the New England Patriots, because I feel like they have shown me enough this year in terms of like high-end. You know what it is? It really is like a team with a high-end quarterback who doesn't necessarily have all the best talent around him. Mm-hmm. Like, I think that's always a good benchmark, because it's like, again, as we've seen, a great quarterback can kind of rally his team under any circumstances to get out the win. It's like, are you good enough to avoid that trap? Are you good enough to like not get suckered into, man, that guy just made 3 throws and he got the better of us? And I think that's a good barometer for like how talented you are as a team. And on the NFC, I'm going to go with, you know what? I'm going to go with the Falcons. I think like, yeah, because again, it's like, especially with the investments they've made on defense, they have enough high-end talent on both sides of the ball where it hasn't been consistent. They're still prone to weird gaps or weird like stretches where they just can't buy a yard. But like, and the consequence of having like a gunslinger at quarterback is sometimes you'll just have like a weird "what the fuck were you thinking" turnover that completely changes the game. But I do think it's like they're going to challenge you in every aspect of like they have a higher end wide receiver, they have a great running game, they have a good enough quarterback, and their defense has just enough of a pass rush to make it interesting. Like it's going to put you through your paces where you have to be a pretty consistent, you have to be steady, you have to be mistake free, and you have to, you have to be a well-rounded team to beat them. I think that's a good barometer for figuring out like, hey, are we good enough? Like, are we good enough that when it gets to January, we're going to have all the tools we need to win?
Yeah.
I think that was a good pick by me, if I do say so myself.
You didn't have me at first, but the more you talked, the more I bought into your scheme.
Right. I think a good sign for a benchmark team is like genuinely, can they throw everything at you and you have an answer for everything? And as that Bills game showed, the Falcons actually do have a lot of cards they can play.
Yeah.
They only threw it to two guys, but like, yeah, they have Kyle Pitts. If you can't handle Kyle Pitts, how are you going to win? But yes, shall we move on to next week?
We shall. First off, I'd like to point out Carson Wentz will be starting against the Eagles, which is funny.
If let's be realistic about this, if the Eagles haven't played well against, they have inconsistencies against Brian Flores. If the Eagles lose this game, like it's like, yeah, we're talking lockdown, escape from New York-esque conditions in Philadelphia.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, the actual important parts of next week. London 3.
Yes. Ugh.
Tottenham getting, I think that's where they're playing. I think they're playing at Tottenham. Rams Jaguars, ironically enough. Oh, they're playing at Wembley.
Oh, really? They changed the stadium?
Yeah, they did. Isn't Wembley where? Wembley. I don't know. I don't know base or soccer in the European circuit outside of like Ted Lasso. Yeah, so London 3, once again, we're still there. But
just let it end.
At least with it being Jacksonville, Los Angeles, you might be getting something out of it. Compared to those
whatever the hell last week was.
That we watched last week. And honestly, the week before wasn't exactly amazing either.
Right. For once, the Jaguars are an interesting team to have in London.
Yeah. Bye week time. Baltimore Ravens.
Two teams that desperately need them.
Oh, yeah. Baltimore Ravens need to get their lives together. They are 1-5, and they should be not that.
Right. Like, the number of injuries they have, they really just need a week to get right and come up with a plan. And I really do think you're getting to the point where you have to question whether or not it's worth bringing Lamar back or not. Because it's like, yes, this division isn't very tough. You could squeak out enough wins to get the division. But it's like, all right, but you're really going to have to push yourself. And is it worth risking next season for this season?
Yeah, I think that's where this is when those conversations are going to happen with like Lamar and stuff of like, how bad are these injuries? How bad is this? And then let's have fun here. And if it's like, all right, I would have been back in week 7 if we had one, no problem. It's like, all right, we can make something happen then. But if
you really needed to steal one of these 2 Cooper Rush games.
Yeah. But now it's just very, very dreadful for them.
Exactly.
Unfortunately, a very good team. And then Buffalo Bills.
Yes, they will be getting a few players back from suspension. They kind of need a couple of different things. They need to decide if they're going to push the chips in. It's not a good conference this year. Like, the conference is weak. The window's open. But it's a matter of if they're willing to push the chips in and try to win now with either an investment in wide receiver or an investment in safety/cornerback. And yeah, I don't know what's going to happen. It could get ugly really, really fast.
I think the best option is for them to be negotiating someone for Josh to throw to.
Yeah, I just like you've already invested so much in the defense. That's been my complaint this entire time. You spent so much money and so many resources on the defense that if it wasn't going to get it together now, it's never going to get it together. And you might just have to embrace the Bengals. We're going to win games 40-0 sort of energy.
Yeah. But yeah,
Boy,
that's
vey.
all the buys.
Yeah, I do not get this buy schedule at all.
It's a weird one.
Yeah, I just like, I don't know. Again, we need to eliminate the arbitrariness of everything.
Hmm.
Biggest game of the week, Tampa Bay, Detroit.
Yep.
An interesting game because Tampa Bay is keeping it together with glue and string. Most likely, Emeka Ibuka is going to be out. Mike Evans might come back. I love the idea that between Evans, Godwin, and Ibuka, only one of them is going to be healthy at any time. And it's like, congratulations, you're getting 20 targets.
Yeah, and I hope it's Evans this upcoming one because I'm playing you.
Ah, shit. I didn't know you had Evans.
I do have Evans.
Yes, we're playing each other in fantasy, and it was the Kenneth Gainwell, Jalen Warren Bowl yesterday with a surprise, Chase matchup yesterday.
I don't think that was a surprise now that he can get thrown to.
Yeah, now that at least 70% of his targets are actually catchable, yes, I guess it's not a surprise. Thank God I held on to that stock, but. Yes, I think it's going to be an exciting game. Interestingly enough, both teams are really good at stopping the run, so it's really up in the air. Like, Detroit has its full range of offensive weapons. Tampa doesn't. I do think if this really is the Baker MVP year, we're going to have to see some real moxie and gusto this game, making it work with what he's got.
I think this is going to be him. I think he's got a frat boy out, where as much as I don't like Tampa, but I like them more now because the Eagles actually got a win over them for once in the Jalen Hurts era.
Right.
Because I think that hasn't happened. That happened maybe once before the game that they played earlier this season. And watching Baker just ball out and I think he has the craziest hand strength of every single quarterback. Because you see him just reaching out the ball forward with his one hand, and he's just people are trying to punch it out, people are trying to slap it out, and he's just got this death grip on it, where he's just not releasing it at all, and he throws it too smoothly for me to be like, oh, what if he's got some sort of sap or something on his hands to make it stick better. It's just when he throws it, it's just he sends it. He just has crazy grip strength, like a
right
orangutan.
Yes, I honestly, in terms of guys who get the most out of their physical tool set, for a guy who of the quarterbacks of that draft class had the least sort of gaudy sort of physical numbers, he's made the most of his body.
Absolutely.
I hope it means we're going to get back to me going the game of the year, because even just 1 week without that felt like an eternity. Yeah. Do we want to do our don't sleep on games?
Yeah, because that's the only thing that's left outside of your goodbye.
Yes. So you picked Indianapolis versus the LA Chargers. A fun pick.
Yeah, it's a very fun Indianapolis this year, and a very on again, off again Chargers. Where there's oh, Justin Herbert looks insane. And then it's just what is he doing? Oh, Ladd McConkey looks insane. What is he doing? It's so back and forth that they're really just on the vibrating back and forth on the metronome. Them against this plucky Indiana Jones team.
Yes.
I feel it could make for a very secretly good game.
Right. I do feel in terms of the games that could potentially I feel everyone's waiting for the Colts to secretly be exposed, and while I don't think that's going to happen, I think this is a good test for them to see how good they really are.
Can you hang with some bigger,
right? The big boys. Because you could hang with the Rams, and you should have won that game. This is their biggest test outside of the Rams game for a little bit.
Yeah. So it's gonna be interesting to see.
Yes. And I picked Green Bay, Arizona. Not because of Arizona. I'm more or less convinced their season is over and it's only going to get worse from here. Something about that game they blew against the Titans feels like the wheels are going to come off game. But it's more for me in Green Bay. Right now, I feel after that Bengals game, I feel really weird about Green Bay where I'm like, why aren't you dominating again? Why have we stalled out as a team?
Yeah,
I feel like this is a good test.
they showed back up, but it wasn't like a fun win. It wasn't like we're killing it.
Right. It's you took advantage of the fact that the Bengals defense is still very bad to squeak that game out. Whereas it's also a pace setting game, but in a different light, where it's like, okay, under no circumstances should you lose this game. In fact, you should probably bully this team a little bit. Again, one of the reasons why there's a lot of consternation about the Bills is because when you have championship aspirations, you need at least a handful of games where you really just put the hurt on someone.
Yeah.
Where you really just put like an inferior team thoroughly in a body bag and just twirl them around. And Green Bay hasn't really had that yet, outside of, kind of dominating the Lions week 1.
Yeah.
Like, I need to see you, if you're not going to put the hurt on Arizona, then I'm questioning if it's going to happen.
Yeah, because that's a team like some of the teams they play throughout the rest of the season, like Giants, Panthers, for example, this current iteration of Ravens. With the rate they're going, where it's just like, yeah, you put the hurt on them, nobody's gonna think any better than you, of you. It's just like, all right, whatever. You didn't this.
You didn't poop yourself.
But it's like, yeah, they beat the Lions, they beat the Packers, they beat the Bengals, but it wasn't, or not Packers. They are the Packers. They beat the Commanders. Where it's just like, all right, you guys looked good. You look like good teams, but you're not laying the smack down. You're not dropping like 50 points. And the time they scored over 30 points, actually, they have not reached 30 yet again, was their tie with the Cowboys, where they scored 40.
Right. A team you should have beaten.
A team that your defense should have theoretically just bullied.
Exactly. Yeah, so this kind of feels like a do or don't die game for me in terms of like really sort of wish casting them to be the Super Bowl team we want them to be.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Shall we send the kids home?
Yeah, send them home, Carter.
Well, ghouls and goblins, we are officially in the 2-week countdown to Halloween, so make sure you take advantage of kind of 2 slow weeks of football to get your costumes finalized, get your candy, get your Stromboli, get your map of the neighborhood, come up with your plans for the holidays, and get ready. Because at this time of year, when there's a lot of flux in the NFL, things are going to get spooky.